Good afternoon. It is Sunday, August 16th, 2015. This is Jason Horak reporting on the ongoing adventures of the Dodge Daytona electric vehicle. What we're looking at here at the moment is the front battery box, and in specific we're analyzing the voltage on our poor little abused cell number 11 in the pack, and I came up with 11 just by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, kind of in series from the end. Anyway, so this is the cell that we know from previous experiments was bloated, has less capacity than the rest of them, and had vented really badly back in, was it September of last year. Rather than taking it out of the pack like I originally planned, I kept it in there and have just been driving the car a little bit during the winter, but mostly since the snow thawed in the spring and right on through the summer. So just drive it normally, plug it in, walk away, come back, rinse and repeat. So what I wanted to show you was that I hadn't charged it in about a week. I've been driving it several times for errands and so forth, and then had noticed that I was down on the JLD 404 at about 117 amp hours consumed out of the pack. I normally get about 180 amp hours, give or take, out of my 180 amp hour cells, and so that's not unusual for me to use a little over half the pack in daily driving over the course of a week. But just for fun, I happened to go ahead and check the battery cells and noticed that this little cell number 11 was at 1.76 volts. Not sure if the camera's making that out very well, but there it is. So this particular cell is well below the safety zone. I think they say about 2.5 volts. Anything under that and you're starting to damage things, or maybe it's 2 volts. But either way, we're below that. And just to give you an idea, the next cell in the pack, actually I had that reversed. Well, whatever, doesn't really matter. It was negative versus positive, but so next cell in the pack is at 3.29, and I think we're going to find that most of the cells are in that same zone, 3.29, 3.29, and etc. So try one more just for fun. Hey look, 3.29. So everything else is in balance very well, except this one cell, which has got significantly diminished capacity, and also has been damaged and vented and etc. So at this point, my plan is to pull the battery out and get my range back, because I wouldn't be able to drive the car a full 100 miles. Just because this one cell is so far below the rest that it would hit bottom and go into reversal and bad things would happen. So it would be a good idea to pull it out of the pack. However, I'm not going to do that yet. I've got one last experiment that I want to do while I have the cell in here, and that is I'm going to do a full charge while monitoring the voltage on this cell. So as you see, I have my little leads here. This is going to the power lab, and what we'll do is do a little walk around here. So that goes up here and is just routed around. You can see that it's plugged into, there are actually two relays. These are self-resetting breakers that are 40 amp rated, and I can't remember the voltage on them, but they're DC breakers, so they're designed for this kind of stuff, rather than the fuses that I kept blowing in these on the power lab. But that's just hooked up into the two banana jacks into the power lab. So the power lab itself is powered by this 12 volt lead, which goes down there and is plugged into my cigarette lighter. Cables are all caught on everything. Alright, there we go. So that plugged into the cigarette lighter. So I'm actually powering that off of that poor little battery that is below 2 volts. I also have my laptop set up here, and I've got it connected to the Soliton, which is on at this point. So that's showing us there 195 amp hours on the pack. And basically I'm just going to leave this on and recording. In fact, we'll go ahead and start logging now just for fun. And then here we're going to start the Power Lab. I'm not sure how well the camera's going to make this out, but I'm going to hit start, and this is my same configuration that I had set up before, but I'm just going to hit monitor instead of discharging. And so it's going to show us verify chemistry A123, which of course they're not, but you know how that works. 1.72 volt, 0.725 volts, and sure, we'll save it as A123 graph, doesn't really matter. Okay, so now we can go and pull up the graph and see what's going on. So there we go. 1.725 volts is how we started, and we are logging. So what I'm going to do is plug in the charger, and we're going to go through a full charge cycle just to kind of demonstrate once again what the Charger Buddy is going to do for us, as far as it's going to shut off the pack when the voltage of the entire pack hits 210 volts. Now, we know that this one cell is sufficiently unbalanced with the rest, so what I'm expecting to see is the voltage on this one cell is going to go crazy. It's going to go really high, and I'm going to call that as being an okay thing in this case, because we're not putting extra amps into it, any extra capacity. It's going to limit the capacity that the rest of the cells are receiving. So now we're plugged in, we're charging. The Charger Buddy is showing 198.8 and rising, 199.0, and so forth. We're dumping in the full 40 amps that we always do. Actually, let's go ahead and check that on the JLD 404. So 39 amps, and again it kind of fluctuates, 37, 36 to 39, 199.4 on that one, and this is the, the amp hours. So it was 115 amp hours consumed. Not sure if the camera made out any of that. Sometimes the glare is funny that way. But anyway, 115.5 is what we had taken out, and then we see on the laptop our pack voltage is up to 200 now on this, and the individual cell voltage looks like 2.702, yep, 2.73, and so forth. So this will be an interesting graph to see at the end what this cell actually went through, going from the below undercharged to the above overcharged voltage range. And yeah, I'm just kind of curious what it does. I wish I had more Power Labs and I could monitor more cells at the same time, or maybe use those extra little, there's a lead thing that you can plug in here that allows you to plug in multiple cells. Yeah, anyway, that's how I've got it set up for the moment, and we'll just go ahead and let it charge. I'm not going to touch it at all. I'm just going to let it do its thing unattended. Probably go take a nap, because that's kind of a good time for it. Yeah, we're just going to let it do its thing, and then we'll come back and see how it ended up after the full charge. So, be back in a bit. Okay, I just started the charge on this poor little beat up battery, and I wanted to do another experiment while this is going on. I've recently acquired a nice little temperature sensor device. I've been complaining that I didn't really have a good way to measure temperature very well, and it's nice that these were inexpensive at Lowe's. Anyway, so the ambient temperature in here, just in the garage right now, it looks like it's about 90, I'm going to say 93, 93.3. I'm just kind of pointing that at the wall. So what I wanted to see was how much the batteries get warmer during the charging process. And so this is just going to be the baseline since I just started the charge. We're going to point it right at the terminal. So the terminal on the battery, just a regular battery, is 87.9, and the battery itself, right about the same. Maybe we'll over here, 87.4, give or take. So not too bad. The damaged cell is right in the same range. 87.8 is what I'm showing on that. 87.9 for that one. So yeah, so there's no extra temperature yet. 88 point. It's really hard to aim. 88.5 we'll say for the terminal, which is the same exact temperature as the one next to it. So yeah, so I think that's pretty fair as, again, a baseline. So the terminal temperature on the damaged cell to start out with was 88.5. And you know, it is charging right now, dumping in 40 amps into the poor little cell, and we're already up to 2.96. 2.97, 967, there we go. 97, there we go. Alright, anyway, so the one next to it, just as a reference, is 3.39, which is, I believe, the same value that it was to start with. This one's 3.383. 3.39, this one here, and so under charge they exhibit slightly different characteristics. 3.37 and so forth. So we'll go ahead and leave that right in there, and we'll come back in a few hours, see how she's doing. Okay, so it's been a little over 3 hours now, and the charger just shut off, so I've got it unplugged, and this particular cell, the damaged cell in the pack, is showing a 3.426 volts currently, and dropping as it starts to settle. The cell, let's pick another random cell in the pack here, so 3.447. And this one here, 3.416. This one here, 3.463. This one here, 3.583. Let's pull one just kind of up here at random. Another one, 3.49. So, you know, they're kind of all over the place, as they often are at the end of a charge cycle with bottom balanced cells. Let's take a look at some temperatures. So it warmed up quite a lot in the garage today. It's late afternoon, the sun's kind of beating in here. So it looks like it's about 95 or so, just ambient in the room. So the battery, let's pick one kind of random cell next to it here. So we're about 93.2, 93. There's a 94, so we'll say 94.4 for that cell. The damaged one, showing up to 100.7, I think I saw there. Depends on kind of like where you hit it. But anyway, high 90s. So it is, you know, about 5 or 6 degrees more than the rest of the cells at the end of the charge process. But, you know, well within tolerances. Nothing that I'm particularly alarmed about. The terminals don't feel hot to the touch. You know, they're a little warm, but not anything too much. Again, about 100 degrees. There's 102 over on that terminal, 101, 102. So that was the positive terminal there. 97 for a different cell. So, you know, again, all pretty normal-ish. So let's go ahead and take a look at the laptop, and the power lab and see where we're at. Okay, so this cell got up to a maximum of 3.721 volts before it looks like it just started tapering off right there where it terminated the charge. And so now it's currently sitting at, let's just get the exact, so 3.388 according to this, so not too bad. Pack voltage has dropped down to 205. It had gotten up above 210, it was about 214 or so, just as the Soliton measured it in the front of the car where it's cool, versus back here at the rear half of the car. So it was about 3 hours and 12 minutes, 10 minutes, something like that, for the charge here. And yeah, seems to be doing what it's doing. So anyway, it's kind of interesting. I kind of expected this cell to really jump quite a bit higher than the rest of them, and it sort of didn't. Kind of indicating that it's more top balanced now than it was bottom balanced with the rest. Since obviously before it was really far down, below 2 volts, and yet it hit the top just about the same time as the rest of these. So anyway, that's not really sure what conclusion to draw from that. Obviously this cell has less capacity than the rest, so I would like to pull it out of the car just to get that full range. But I don't think it's overly alarming. It didn't get that hot. Seems to work just about as well as it did before, other than the fact that it's at much less capacity. So there you go. Okay, I just wanted to share with you a couple of my observations on this particular test, and they may be correct, they may be me typing myself smart, but I just wanted to share what I am observing here and see if I can come up with a conclusion. So basically, this is the Power Lab graph from that particular test. I was able to maximize it so that we can kind of see the entire curve, showing that it starts out at 1.716 volts, and then over the course of just a relatively small amount of time, it gets up to, let's say, right about here, it hits 3 volts, which is 6 minutes and 48 seconds into it. And then we kind of hit the flat part of the curve. I don't know, we're going to call it maybe right around in here, 3.35, 3.36 at 32 minutes in. So very rapid acceleration there. And then it kind of flattens out just like it normally does for all these lithium iron phosphate cells. And then we start to curve up here. We're going to call that right about 2 hours and 40 minutes ish, before it kind of starts to really ramp up, but not terribly fast. Just you can definitely see that it's rising more rapidly than it goes across. So, and it topped out at 3.722 volts, and that is at 3 hours, almost 3 hours even. And then it starts to kind of taper off here. You can kind of see the sort of a straight part on the curve. That's actually where the charger had kicked in to constant current mode, or sorry, constant voltage mode. It was constant current. This is like 40 amps for this entire thing. And then right here it starts dropping off the amperage from 40 down to about 20 before the charger buddy kicked in. Right here you can see the kind of sharp dip. So this is at 3.6 volts is where it got down to, and it was at 3 hours and 7 minutes. And then it just kind of dives down here as it settles to about there at 3 hours and 14 minutes at 3.381 volts. So anyway, that is just kind of the way the curve worked. It's very similar to the rest of the cells, except that they, of course, started up here and kind of stayed pretty much in the flat part the whole way across, and then kind of dipped up at the end before they terminated. So anyway, I don't have a really good way of showing that because I don't have multiple power labs, but that's kind of the conclusion that I was able to draw. So I'm going to go ahead and get the laptop out of here and reposition the camera just a little bit, and I'm going to show you some voltages. Okay, so this is the swollen damaged cell once again, and it's had a chance to settle. It's had a chance to kind of chill out with the rest of the pack. I believe I drove it maybe about 2 miles just to do some errands yesterday, and so it's been parked for over 24 hours now, just kind of sitting here doing what it does, you know, chilling in the garage. So I kind of wanted to show you the rest of the batteries as well as this one, and I'm just going to go through every battery in my pack, and it'll be dull and boring, but I kind of want to show you the pattern of, you know, where we're at. So again, this is the damaged cell. We're at 3.298 volts on this particular cell, and we're just going to go to all the rest of them in the pack. Just going to go right down through. So here we go from the end. I'm going to touch it right on the terminals there. 3.337. Next one. 3.337. And the next one. 3.337. 3.336. 3.337. 3.337. 3.337. 3.337. 3.336. 3.337. 3.336. Back to our damaged cell. 3.298. And just go a couple past them. I'm not going to bore you to tears here, any more so than I already have. We've got 3.336 on this next cell. And the next one. 3.336, and so on. So we're into the thousandths place as far as voltage difference on these cells. And I went through the entire back battery box, all 30 batteries. Every single one of them was 3.336 or 3.337. So we're well within the 1/1000th of a volt difference between all the different cells at their resting voltage, with only the damaged one showing a different voltage. So I think we're in pretty good shape. The pack is still balanced quite well, other than this one bad apple, and so that's kind of where we're at. So based on the conclusion of the test, this cell was actually, it had become top balanced, or relatively top balanced, which I think is kind of interesting, because again, it used to be bottom balanced with the rest of the pack, but as we saw when it was at the depleted state, this one was quite a bit lower than the rest, and the pack was only a little over half depleted for the rest of the batteries. So anyway, it just found that kind of interesting. I think it has something to do with the way the charger kind of dumps current into the entire pack at once, and then, you know, brings up all the cells to a certain level, and then, you know, essentially cuts it off once they hit that point. Several hundred cycles past that, it seems like the cell kind of settles right around the same thing at the top end, as far as that voltage. So anyway, the point of the whole exercise was that there is no real big damage to the cells. You know, even though it had swollen and had, you know, a bunch of issues, it still works. You know, it's not a dire thing. You know, no amount of battery management systems would have made any difference here. You know, they may have thrown an error flag or something to let me know that there was a problem on the discharge end, but I'm not terribly worried about the results here. You know, if I had driven the car, let's just say, as an example, if I had driven this past that 115 amp hours, 120 amp hours, whatever it was, and caused more damage to this one cell, so what? I mean, even if I had driven it into reversal and killed it, the rest of the pack is fine, and it's not going to burst into flames. It's not going to have all kinds of, you know, dire consequences. You know, in worst case, we're going to vent some more of this fluid, this, you know, lithium salt water that's in them, and there you go. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is that I'm still very impressed with these batteries. After abusing the hell out of them for, oh gosh, we're going on 4 years now, more than 4 years, of just absolutely beating the tar out of them. And they're all good except for the one cell that had issues to start with, and this may have been a battery that had a problem at the factory, you know, maybe a little bit of an imperfection just when it was made, because it's always exhibited some slightly different characteristics to the rest, and that's why it has a little black marker thing on it, because I noted that it had issues before, and that's why I moved it to the front battery box where it was very easy to get to and I could monitor it. Because I kind of suspected there might be something up with it, even back when I originally installed it. So, anyway, that's just where we're at. I'm going to pull the battery out, and I just kind of want to go over a few safety tips of basically what I do when I'm removing one cell from the pack or doing any kind of maintenance on the cells, just as a safety thing. So anyway, now is time to pull this battery out of here, and mainly because I want to get the full usage of the rest of the batteries and back to my full 100-mile plus range without having to worry about, you know, one cell hitting bottom before the rest. So what I'm going to do is first go over a couple really basic safety tips. We're dealing with a high voltage pack. It's about 200 volts. And you know, you don't want to have a metal wrench that you can drop, you know, across the terminals, because it's going to heat up the metal of the wrench so much that it may vaporize the wrench depending on where it falls in the pack, or at the very least it's going to become very, very hot and probably burn you. So what I ended up doing is I use my just off-the-shelf, really cheap ratchet. You know, this is a AutoZone, came in a kit for like 40 bucks, so it's not really a super high-tech item. But as you can see, I've wrapped it in electrical tape. So there's a thick layer of, you know, many layers here of electrical tape, so that if this should fall on the pack, at no point does it get where it can connect two cells at the same time. See, there's just not enough room there of any of the metal piece. And if this part touches and this part touches, there's no contact because it's in electrical tape. So anyway, so that's the kind of like step one of safety, is make sure that you don't have a piece of metal that can bridge through the contacts. And even in here, you can see it doesn't quite reach between the two. So anyway, so that's step one. Step two is always disconnect your battery pack, at least the mains, as the first step. So what we're going to do is pop the switch. And you heard a click there. That was actually the contactor for the Soliton, because I had it on at the time. And so we've just cut the power, and it's off. And now in my particular build, I don't have a 12-volt battery, so when I hit that red button, there's no power anywhere. There's, you know, on the main battery pack here, from here for the two main leaves, we've got and it's got some surface charge still on the pack, 160 volts and decreasing. There's no amps behind that. It's just again, the surface charge on the metal, you know, of those bars, as well as, you know, probably on all these little straps that had connected things. So anyway, but this pack is still alive. Like everywhere between this here at the end here and over here is still alive and well and perfectly capable of hurting you. So let's see if I get the thing here to behave. So that is, for this particular front battery box, 83 volts. And that can still cause a lot of damage. And so what we end up doing is disconnecting a particular cell in the pack to basically removing one of the straps. In this case, I'm going to remove this strap here because I know that this particular battery is coming out here, so I'm going to have to undo the strap anyway. So, pro safety tip also is loosen the bolts, but don't remove them completely until they're both nice and loose to the finger, so you can finger loosen them. Because what you don't want to have happen is when you're loosening that bolt with the wrench and torquing it around, you don't want this thing spinning and hitting another thing and causing a big spark and bad stuff. Ask me how I know. So anyway, I'm just going to loosen these a little bit. All of these straps that are touching that. And we're going to be very, very gentle, doing it with my fingers. And we're removing that from the equation. So now, just an interesting side note, how I use my bolts. So I have the bolt. I have the Nordlock washer. This is a, the special, the camera probably isn't making out very well, but there's ridges in here on the one side that are kind of canted? Yes, canted. And then on the other side, there's it's like a rough surface that bites into the underside of the bolt, like right on, in there. And so with the two canted surfaces, when it's tightened down, it doesn't allow it to turn this particular, one washer against the other, because it kind of bites into the surface above and below. That helps them stay nice and tight. I haven't even tightened these things in like a year and a half or whatever last time I took the thing apart. Now I use a washer. They say not to do this. It's very, according to the people at Nordlock and Jack at EVTV, he says do not use a washer in between the Nordlock and the strap, because he wants it to bite down into the strap itself to help hold, and otherwise he believes that you are defeating the whole purpose of the Nordlock washer. I don't know. That's probably true. I'm not going to argue with that. I don't use that method. I use have a washer in between to kind of spread out the surface area, and then the pressure of that whole surface area of the washer is holding the strap down. My method is probably worse, and may cause problems in the future, but so far I really haven't had any issues. It may be because all my batteries are horizontal, or vertical rather, so that I'm screwing it in from the top and gravity is doing the work for me, and it's not like constantly shaking the battery on the side or something. I'm not sure, but either way, that's the strategy that I use. So now that we've removed the strap, we're going to set this aside carefully away from the battery box. And we're going to just do the same thing on the next one. And now we're at the point where the battery is technically free. Now I'm probably going to have to remove, because I know this is swollen a little bit and it's going to be a pain, I may have to remove the batteries kind of around it in order to get this one out. And because they have these nice little ridges on the sides. As an example here, so they're ridged that way, so when you're trying to pull them out, the ridges catch everywhere, and it's like really a pain in the neck. But anyway, that's kind of the thing. What I'll be doing is, before I get too crazy, I'm also going to take just one of the straps off from the back battery box as well, just to make sure that there isn't any voltage coming from that pack, which is, again, that's 60 cells. Can't do the quick math, but 60 times 3.337 volts is something, and you really don't want that coming through, just from, depending on where it comes from the pack. Like in my case, it comes from the back battery box into the positive, whereas the front battery box is where the negative comes out of. And then that one over there connects the front to the back. So the positive from this pack actually goes back to the rear box, I believe. I forget now exactly which way it goes. Doesn't really matter, but the point is that the back is still alive, and so you've got a fairly high amount of voltage coming from the back of the car as well, and just by taking off one strap, you're effectively cutting the circuit, and you're not going to have to worry about those leads being live up front. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get my super secret patented battery removal device, and we'll see how that works. Usually what I end up using is a strap of rubber. This is just a piece of rubber from an old floor mat, actually, and I put a bolt through each of these sides and then put it into here, and then use that to pull the battery out. Jack Rickard has some really nice like nylon rope with two terminal ends on it that's of course non-conductive as well, and then he uses that to pull the batteries out. Don't have any one of those fancy ones, so I'll just make my own with this little piece of rubber. Anyway, that's where we're at. Well, let me see if I can get this out of here. It's going to be painful and difficult as always. And also, particularly in my build, I have the blue foam insulation on the sides, so those little ridges on the sides tend to catch on the foam, and then it's like really tough, and you gotta wiggle it back and forth, and basically doesn't make very good film with me cussing and so forth. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that popped out of here, and we'll be back in a minute. Well, as they say in the biz, that didn't work. This is my wonderful little rubber strap that came off of the floor mat, and as you can see, it just ripped right off on both ends. Turns out that the amount of pressure necessary to yank one of these batteries out while it's catching on the edge is just enough that the strap couldn't take it. I did use the strap to lower them in, and that worked out pretty well, but bringing them out, it just wasn't enough. So I got to thinking, how do I make this work? And what I came up with was this. We have ourselves a nice piece of 2x4 with a couple long bolts through it that are spaced just so to be where the terminals are, and a good hardy chest handle to give me a lot of leverage to just pull these right out of there. So what we're going to do is, I've already taken out the hard ones actually, because they were in the way and I couldn't get the swollen cell out with them in that location. But we just put this in here and we screw it down. Again, just tighten it by hand. We don't want to damage those copper or aluminum threads. But go ahead and put this in here. There we go, so we know we're definitely within the thread. I'm just going to tighten it just a bit here to make sure that we're don't have a lot of slop, mainly because you don't want it to be, I don't know, just going at an angle or anything or pulling unevenly. So it's just tightened a little bit, not a lot of pressure. But now we have a nice little handle, and we can try to get this guy out of here. Now, even with all that, it's still kind of a pain because, again, these little edges just kind of catch. So this is our cell. Again, I'm not really sure. You can kind of see that it's swollen ever so slightly. Again, it doesn't really come out even on the camera very much, but just a little bit of damage. I can kind of see it right in here where it's swollen, but it's not not too noticeable just by looking at it that this cell has a little less than, or a little over half capacity of the rest of them. So anyway, but my cell extraction tool seems to work really well, and it's nice and solid. So that's we'll call that a win. So my plan, such that it is that I'm going to actually pull one of the batteries out of the mid battery box. I have 4 batteries in there that are kind of hard to get to. They're underneath where the charger sits in the back of the car, and I'm going to pull out one of those cells and measure it, which should be at 3.337 or 3.336. And then I'm going to take that cell and put it up here in this empty spot. And in the hole, for the time being anyway, I'm going to put just some foam, just some blue foam insulation stuff, just to get it, the space used up back there without adding any additional appreciable weight to the car. But anyway, so that's kind of the plan there. That way we've got a nice full battery box up in front without like a big old missing spot with foam sticking out. And once I get a replacement for that missing cell in the mid battery box, I'll replace that and we'll be off and running. I actually might go with the new CALB, these are the SE series cells. I might go with one of the, I believe they're FI series, the gray ones. If I buy, say, 4 of those, stick those in the middle battery box, then I'd have I'd have 3 leftover blue ones for spares and so forth up front, and yet have those odd, non-matching ones kind of in the middle, where they're out of sight and out of mind. And I do check on them occasionally, but they are a pain to get to, so I don't really want to have to get to them very often. Anyway, that's the plan for now. I'll check back with you once I make some more progress. And so here we're just taking a quick look at the rear battery box. Again, I had opened this up so we could take a look at each of the cells. I went through and measured them all at 3.337 volts or 3.336 volts. And as you can see, there's the one strap that is missing, and that strap has been taken off and set aside just for safety reasons. While I was working on the front of the car, I didn't want to have the full pack voltage on those 2 terminals, on the positive and negative that are going forward, the 2 wires there. So what I'm going to be doing right now is taking out this piece of plywood that is right behind the rear seats and in front of that battery box, and I've got to kind of move the charger buddy aside, get that out of the way, and then so underneath that is where the access hole is to the mid battery box, which actually has 4 of these CALB cells underneath the rear seats, basically underneath the sitting area, right where the gas tank used to be. So in order to get access to that, I've got to take off that piece of plywood, which kind of folds in the middle, and it's not real good video as I struggle with the thing to get it up and out underneath those cables, but I figured just wanted to show you what I was doing before I did it. And this is our video of Jason flailing around to take out that mid battery box. Again, I'm not really sure if this is going to be good video or not, but what the heck, let's give it a shot. And we have no light in here in the car because, of course, we don't have any power. The battery pack disconnected. The 12-volt power is no longer working, so we don't even have like the dome light or anything back here. So I'm kind of relying on my little lights, my little trouble light and stuff. So charger buddy only is connected by this one wire where it has all the power going in, and then you just plug it in on top, so it really doesn't have a whole lot going on. These 2 wires here are what connect the rear battery box to the mid battery box and to the front. So one of them goes through the mid battery box and then around and out, and the other one is the one that goes just straight through to the front. So this piece of plywood has a piece of tape on it, just a little. Alright, so just a little piece of duct tape that kind of lets it fold and makes it a lot easier to take in and out. So that's just like so. Let's just leave it right there. And then I have a piece of the blue foam insulation here that serves as a kind of a spacer, again, lots of duct tape, to hold it up just high enough that it kind of fits the contour and makes this nice and flat and gives it support. So just kind of set that aside over there. Okay, so now what we've got is the mess of this little mid battery box here, and interestingly enough, I had forgotten this actually. I have a battery in here on its side. What I had done, I think last time when I put this all back together, I had to put the one battery in so I have 4 cells. Oh, interesting. So I actually have 5 cells in this rear battery box. Somehow the math worked out differently than I thought. I had actually forgotten. That's funny. So the front battery box, the rear one has 30. The front actually has 25, and so that makes the this one have the last remaining 5. I think it was when I redesigned the front battery box, I thought I was going for 26, and it just kind of worked out mathematically that it's only 25, just with the width of that front strip that goes across. Fascinating. Anyway, I just completely dropped that. So what I've got here is one battery that's just kind of hanging out. That makes it interesting. So this will actually be easier than I thought. I'm going to leave the 4 at the base and just take this one out that's been laying on its side, just kind of chilling here. And that's what I'll put in the front battery box and call it a day. So that'll be pretty simple. This is the plug that goes to the pack up front, and this is where the charger plugs into, and it has 2 leads that come out of here. I'm not sure if the camera can quite see them. They're just little high voltage leads, positive and negative, that go just in that tube up to the charger buddy, and that's how it knows where the voltage is coming from for the meter. So that, anyway, that's all there is to it. And we're gonna just remove this battery and reroute some cables. Go team! Okay, as always, it was an epic struggle to get the batteries back in there, but with my new friend, the Persuader, it actually helped a lot. Basically, I was able to wiggle the battery back and forth, slide it down in there, and we are just golden. So, I wanted to go over something, just kind of a little point that I covered in previous videos, but I figure since I'm doing it again, I might as well go over it again. And that is, first of all, the arrangement of the batteries is kind of obvious, but just to mention it. So we've got the copper and then the aluminum. You can kind of clearly see them. That is of course, the aluminum is the positive and the copper is the negative. So in order to make it work for the arrangement, you got to have them alternating, copper, aluminum, and so forth, all the way through. So it's very important when you're putting the batteries back in to make sure that you get them in there correctly, otherwise you have to take them back out and it's a big pain. Another thing is that when you're going to redo the straps, I've got this is that new 3M special sandpaper that's really interesting stuff, but it's 320 grit, and it's supposed to hold up, I don't know, it's like 12 or 13 times better than the original regular sandpaper as far as like the amount of time it lasts. It's kind of a plastic back type of stuff. But what you want to do is go through each of the cells after you freshly installed them, or reinstalled them in this case, and just give them a little bit of a rub with the sandpaper. And what that's going to do is get the oxidation off of the aluminum and also off of the copper. So we've got a nice, fresh, clean surface. You know, you're not trying to like dig to China or go all the way down, but you are trying to get at least to the point where you've kind of gotten any imperfections that may have happened in the metal, just debris and crap, as well as the oxidation layer, just to kind of get that off of there. And then what I'm going to do here is vacuum these after I wipe them off. Just give them a little quick hit with the sandpaper. And so now that they're all nice and shiny, we know that we've gotten a good contact surface for our straps. Now the straps themselves, also you have to go through and do this. And so for my strap, I'm going to take it here and make sure that this is nice and clean. Because again, it just kind of builds up some stuff on it. And you know, you don't want to wipe away all the layer of tinning that it has on here. But just get it just a little bit. So now we have a nice clean surface. So this would be say for example this to this, and again hand tighten, holding it carefully so that it doesn't go anywhere while you're tightening it. And that's good enough for right now. I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of them on, and then I'll tighten them down with the wrench to get it to, so they're not going to come loose. Now when I tighten them, I use my hand kind of up here, so I'm not putting a lot of, like I'm not using down here on the wrench, so there's not a lot of, what do they call it? It's a pressure on it. I forget what the name of the word is. What is it? They make a special wrench for it. I don't remember. I'm so bad with these things. It'll come to me after I'm done filming. But anyway, so you don't want a whole lot of force on here. So I'm just turning it by hand way up at the top. And so I'm not going to break loose that, because we're screwing into copper and aluminum with a steel bolt. So you really don't want to torque it too hard. Torque wrench? Is that what it's called? I don't know. Anyway, that's the procedure. I'm going to go through and do the rest of these straps, and then we should be back in business for the front battery box at least. Alrighty then, so I have all the batteries remounted in the front battery box. This is with the addition of the extra battery from the mid battery box. It's been moved up front. I put it right here into the coveted 11th position. All the rest of the batteries are where they were before. So the cell that's next to it, at this particular time of night and temperature and all that fun stuff, is showing it 3.334, and the brand new, the battery from the middle battery box that's been moved up here, is 3.333. So, and it's right in the same range as all the rest. Just for reference, another battery that I took out today is 3.333 as well, and this one's 3.333, and so on and so forth. So we are right back in where we were before. It's interesting that we've fluctuated by a couple 1/100ths of a volt since we just time has passed. They settled more, or the temperature has changed as it gets on toward the evening. So anyway, fun stuff. So now that that's all set, just want to go ahead and show you the rear battery box just real quick to kind of recap the adventure. So this is the rear battery box all put back together. It has its strap put back in, 30 batteries in the rear, and then over on the right hand side here you can see the opening to the mid battery box with all my cables. So it's kind of a mass of cables there, because we've got one of the wires coming from the rear battery box goes into that cable and then connects to I believe the battery on the left hand side over here. So I believe it's this black one. So the black one comes out here, goes, kind of loops around, and ends up at the red terminal down there in the mid battery box, and then it goes across the 4 batteries there, comes out on this side, and there's a black terminal on this side that goes out of there and it kind of loops around and goes up all the way to the front battery box. And so that's how the middle battery box is spliced in. The other cables that we're seeing here, this one here of course is going from the charger buddy, and it kind of loops around and then goes out to the side to where the charging port is, as well as connects to the little plug right here. This one goes up to the mid battery box. That cable goes all the way to the front, through the mid battery box up through the front and to the main terminals for where the charger connects. So that's all those wires that kind of live in that middle battery box and are underneath the piece of plywood and the piece of foam and so forth, which ultimately sits underneath the charger. So they're kind of a pain to get to, but you can probably just barely see that there are the terminals exposed there, so I can get a multimeter on them if needed, when they were measured, they were all at 3.33 and some hundredths, 6 or 7 originally, and now they're about 3.335 or 3.334, just at this particular time of night. So anyway, I'm going to get this mid-battery box now all put back together, basically just putting in the foam and the plywood there, and then I can finally get the charger reinstalled. Yay! Alrighty then. So as you can see, I have the battery charger reinstalled. The cable's kind of tidied up. The charger buddy is once again ready to go, and the sheet of plywood is above the rear battery box, so that now the cargo area is once again available for groceries and that sort of thing. So the charger is not on at the moment, but the charger buddy is, and that's because I have it plugged into the wall. To kind of show you what's going on here. So the charger buddy is showing 195.8 volts, and that was pretty much right on par with where it should be. It may need a little calibration to bring it up to match the JLD 404, because the JLD 404 is currently showing 196.1 or 196.0, and that's about right for a pack that's almost fully charged, because we were charging up to 200 volts, then we removed a 3.4 volt cell, 29 technically in this case because it was damaged, but 3.4 volt nominal, and so we're at 196.1. I'm going to probably charge to, let's see if I can do the quick math here, that would be 216.6 is the magic number now, where it was going to 210 volts. That was my cutoff point. So now it'll be 206 rather, 0.6. And then it'll fall back to 196.6, give or take, when it's fully charged and rested. So anyway, so this is the charger buddy, and so I will have to reconfigure that, because right now it's set to 210 volts, and we wouldn't want to go that high with only 59 cells in the pack. So I'll have to reconfigure that, as well as this charger has just been repaired recently, and this is the first time it's been back in the car, so I'm going to have to adjust its volt trim setting with the Vichet tool, the little plastic screwdriver, to get it so that it does the constant current, switches over to constant voltage mode at the set point, which in this case will be 206.6. So anyway, I'm going to take care of that at some point in the near future, before I charge, and that's pretty much it for the battery removal and installation video, and I'll cover the charger programming in the video that covers the charger repair. See you soon.